of the shattering awaits you. Champions, prepare for battle! Defeat the general, gain glory, and grab that great rule! A celebration of war! The Radahn Festival!
Hello, brave adventurers, and welcome. I am incredibly excited that you're here with me today because I am certainly going to need your help, as we will be diving into the history of one of the most powerful and awe-inspiring bosses in video game history, General Radahn, the Starscourge, and his horse Leonard, of course. Today's story takes place in the world of Elden Ring, and more specifically in a realm known as the Lands Between, a literal hellscape where abominations and horrors lurk around every corner.
Together we will devour the very corner.
Today, we will be covering one of the most powerful entities in the entire Elden Ring lore. General Radahn, the Conqueror of Stars, was a being who struck fear into the hearts of mortals, monsters, and gods alike. A demigod of unmatched might, whose fate was sealed not by defeat, but by a tragedy so profound that it shook the heavens themselves. This is his story, a tale of glory, ruin, and the crimson rot that consumed a legend. Before Radahn became the Starscourge and a mighty demigod, he was simply a child born of an unlikely circumstance. His father, Radahn, was a champion of the Golden Order, warring against the armies of his mother, Rennala. Being born the son of a mighty conqueror and of a powerful sorceress who could wield the power of the moon itself, Radahn was sure to have a mighty destiny ahead. One of Radahn's most noticeable characteristics are his flowing red locks of hair. This was a gift from his father's side of the family, and interestingly enough, was indicative that Radahn contained the blood of the giants. Radahn's father, Radahn, resented this red hair as it was indicative of an ancient battle between the Golden Order and the giants. You can even see this in the in-game item, the Giant's Red Braid. Every giant is of red hair, and Radahn was said to have despised his own red locks. Perhaps that was a curse of their kind. General Radahn, however, had a completely different outlook on the red hair that he inherited from the giants, even calling his soldiers the Redmanes, and after defeating him and examining his helmet, it states, "Helm of the Golden Lion with flowing red hair, worn by General Radahn." Radahn inherited the furious flaming red hair of his father Radahn and is fond of its heroic implications. Quote, "I was born a champion's cub. Now I am the lord of the battlefield's lion." With his militia of Redmanes named after his giant heritage, he went on to lead one of the most mighty military forces that the Lands Between had ever seen. Radahn had such a great intellect that he was able to masterfully run this faction of Redmanes. It is even said in the General Radahn Soldier Ashes that they were all reputed to be masterful warriors, and it was popularly said that the Redmanes knew no weakness. Now, it takes more than just strength to be able to run a military like that, so it goes to show the amount of intellect that General Radahn must have possessed. Not only did the Redmanes represent their general's giant heritage in battle, they also wore the Golden Lion armor, which was signifying their allegiance to the Golden Order and subsequently the first Elden Lord, Godfrey. With Radahn's red hair and giant heritage on full display, there was of course one other thing he inherited, his massive stature. Early on in his life, Radahn began to learn the sorcery of his homeland, Caelid. Specifically in the town of Celia, he learned gravity magic, in order to learn to ride his trusty steed Leonard, who he had begun to outgrow due to his giant lineage. And as you can see, Radahn is quite the imposing figure. Interestingly enough, the people who taught Radahn to use his newly found gravitational powers were literally a group of aliens called the Alabaster Lords. But this makes total sense, and if you want to learn how to control stars, I can definitely see an alien being a pretty good teacher. When I first began diving into the lore, I was actually quite surprised how prevalent aliens are in the lands between, and I had fought a few without even realizing it, such as the fallen star beast. Thankfully though, Radahn's great intellect and heroic nature had him use the gravity magic he learned for the benefit of mankind. In an age before the great shattering of the Elden Ring, the lands between were often desolated by the incoming meteors from out in the cosmos. Not only did these cause massive damage from the impact, they would bring abominations from out in the cosmos with them, such as the falling star beast. And it was Radahn who put an end to this. With his powerful mastery of gravitational magic, he halted the heavens themselves in one decisive victory. It's honestly pretty cool that the general started his journey with gravity magic to just be able to support his frame on his tiny horse, but now was holding back meteorites from destroying the lands between. It's worth noting, though, the thing that drove him to be so proficient with it in order to be able to stop literal meteorites was his intense competitive nature with several other heroic figures in the lands between, including Commander Gaius. This would kind of imply that two Giga-Chads competing for who is the strongest literally saved the lands between from cosmic bombardment. After this famous halting of the cosmic bombardment in the lands between, General Radahn earned his infamous name, the Starscourge. He was always destined for greatness, as you can see the power that lies in having the blood of the literal gods by looking at his siblings, Rykard and Ranni, both of which are incredibly powerful in their own rights. However, after the union of his father Radagon and his mother Rennala, his father went on to marry a literal god, Queen Marika. Queen Marika is the most important character in the entire game, as she's quite literally the physical embodiment of the Elden Ring. Before her and Radagon were married, she was actually the wife of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, and had several children by him, but cast him out of the lands between and took his grace, creating the first Tarnished. But that's a whole deep dive for another video. It was not long before she ended up wedding Radagon, her champion of the Golden Order. This meant that she was now the stepmother of Radahn, Rykard, and Ranni. And from this new union of Radagon and Queen Marika came two new demigods, Malenia, the goddess of scarlet rot, and Miquella, her twin brother who was cursed to stay a child forever. Both of these characters would play a key role in the life and death, and life again, of Radahn, and death again, really. After birthing these two demigod children that were both cursed with an affliction, Queen Marika was clearly at her wit's end, but it was then that tragedy struck. Her son, Godwyn the Golden, of her previous marriage with Godfrey the Elden Lord, ended up being assassinated using a piece of the Rune of Death. When Queen Marika discovered the fate of her son, it drove her mad and she shattered the Elden Ring itself. It was the great shattering of the Elden Ring that literally set the world ablaze and caused the factions of the demigods who remain to fight over the pieces of the Elden Ring, now known as Great Runes. It was in one such battle that General Radahn went into one-on-one combat with his sister Malenia. This conflict led to the destruction of Caelid, as during the battle, Malenia was impaled by General Radahn, and he had seemingly won, but instead of submitting, she decided to blossom and destroy the entirety of Caelid. Unfortunately, because of this great battle, Caelid remains a scarlet rot-infested wasteland to this day, and even though he was the mightiest demigod of the Great Shattering, General Radahn did not make it out of this battle unscathed, as the scarlet rot had begun to infest his mind and body. Our once great champion now roamed these wastelands, confused and angry, wielding a great rune, a piece of the Elden Ring. And it was not until the great Festival of Radahn, which is essentially a hunting party sent out by his loyalists who are seeking to put their general out of his misery, since he has been horribly afflicted by the Scarlet Rot. And a tarnished, and many great heroes of the lands between, including Alexander the Warrior Jar, banded together to defeat the general and claim the Great Rune for themselves. Even though the general had been affected by the rot for many years, and from the looks of it doesn't have feet, he was still quite the foe, and took me many tries to kill my very first time through. I really enjoyed this boss fight, and honestly, Radahn has become one of my favorite characters in video game history. The boss fight music was amazing. The ability to be able to summon other characters that I've met along the way was really awesome. But most of all, I just thought it was really difficult. And I know there's going to be people out there that are like, oh, he was easy. But I'm telling you, there was something about his aura, he kept smacking me up. Yes! It's really cool to see the writers be so consistent with stuff like the attacks he uses, even mimicking one of the Alabaster Lord's gravity attacks. Also, fun fact, when Radahn uses his meteor attack, he shoves his horse Leonard under the ground to keep him safe while he flies up into space. I saw on the wiki that someone used data mining to check and see what Leonard did while he was under there, and apparently he tracks the Tarnished, us, while Radahn is up in the sky, so it's kind of creepy knowing that underneath of the sand Leonard is watching us. Upon defeating the general, we claim his great rune for ourselves, and immediately upon his death, the meteors that were hovering above the lands between in outer space come crashing down to our world. These cause a lot of damage to the surface, including breaking open a massive cavern to an underground city. But believe it or not, this honorable death of a demigod is just the beginning, and was actually part of a twisted plot of resurrection and divinity. In the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, we find out what Melania had whispered to Radahn during their battle in Caelid. Miquella awaits the promised consort, and this is reference to a vow Radahn made to Miquella. Now, of course we know that Miquella is Radahn's half-brother, and unfortunately was cursed with the body of a child, but when you're a demigod who happens to be trapped in the body of a child, it's definitely not a bad idea to get your half-brother who happens to be part giant and is a master of gravitational magic to fight your battles for you. And that is where Radahn comes back into the picture. In the Shadow of the Erdtree, we finally track down Miquella to the Gate of Divinity.
The vow will be honored, and my lord brother's soul will return, so that he may be my consort.
And during this encounter, we receive a visit from our old friend Radahn, who has been freshly resurrected in the body of Mog, one of Queen Marika's previous sons before her marriage with Radagon. With this revelation, we end up finding out that all along Miquella was planning to use Radahn as his chosen consort, and even used his sister Melania to spread the scarlet rot to Radahn, perhaps weakening him enough for the Tarnished to be able to give him the honorable death required in order for this ritual to be complete. We even find out that during their battle, Melania whispered to Radahn, "Miquella awaits thee, O promised consort." Probably my favorite thing about the promised consort is the fact that this is not the Radahn we fought in the Caelid Desert. Oh no, this is Prime Radahn. Oh my god! What? The one that we faced during the festival was one who had been traveling in the desert for years and was hungry, delusional, and completely just a husk of his former self. But this Radahn, freshly revived in the body of another demigod, was ready to kick the shit out of us. Thankfully, a powerful Tarnished stopped Miquella's plan to ascend to godhood with the gates of divinity, and so concludes Radahn's life. Again, it goes to show the sheer intellect, loyalty, and honor that Radahn had for his family, as he believed Miquella to be the one worthy of becoming a god. This is why he agreed to let himself be used in such a manner and trusted him completely.
Lord brother, at long last you are returned. Tarnished one, aspiring lord of the old order. If you have known sin, if you grieve for this world, then yield the path forward to us. To I, Miquella, and my promised consort, Radahn. Lord brother, I'm going to be a god. If we honor our part of the vow.
I definitely have to say that after doing all my research for this video and learning all this about Radahn, he has to be one of my favorite characters in any work of fiction ever.
Promise me you'll be my consort. I'll make the world a gentler place.
Elden Ring has truly taken the lore and character development of bosses and taken it to a whole new level. He's like this badass combination of Kratos, Shao Kahn, Madara Uchiha, and the Mountain from Game of Thrones. Virtually everywhere you go in this game, you're up to your neck with horrific abominations with an equally scary and incredible backstory. I just want to say that I've really enjoyed going into this deep dive on Radahn with you today. If you enjoyed this adventure, please make sure you leave me a like, as I am a small but passionate channel and every little bit helps us grow. I plan on making many more videos about Elden Ring, and leave me a comment and let me know who you would like me to dive into next. But I don't have anything else for you today. I have people who need saving and abominations who need slain, and without further ado, Pride Slayer out.